So really, we need God's power to forgive, but like many things, we do have a choice in the matter. God does not force us. We can't be forced into forgiveness. God gives us a choice to forgive. And so we do have a role in the process. So let's take a look at the next scriptures, Colossians 3, verses 12 through 14. It says, "Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive whatever grievances you may have against one another. Forgive as the Lord forgave you, and over all these virtues put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity." And then in Ephesians chapter 4, verses 30 through 32. "And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as Christ God forgave you." So you see how there's an element, there's an active part that we take on. We have a choice. Forgiveness isn't something, like I said, that we can be forced into. We have to decide to forgive. As I was preparing this message, Jonathan asked me about different ideas that I had for graphics or what have you. And initially, I sent him a picture of a finger pushing a delete key. And the idea was, it's our choice to hit the delete key. When you delete a file, it says, "Are you sure you want to delete this file?" Yes or no? You bet yes. But when I sent that to him, there was something that bothered me a little bit about it. It captured this idea of us having a choice, but it was a little too mechanical or a little too sterile, I guess. And so I started thinking about different metaphors to use. And, I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where there are no trees. Well, very few trees. And not a lot of water. So sailing is not like a part of my history, but I had the opportunity a few years ago. A buddy of mine from college was living on a sailboat in Los Angeles. And if you're familiar with the areas, there's like a marina, right, at Redondo and Hermosa, I think, where they come together. It's a chart house restaurant, and there's this marina. So Kirk was living in this marina. So he took me out on his sailboat, and it was awesome. It was fascinating to me just to see him raise the sail. And so there's this idea of raising the sail, and then you have this thing some of you sailors might know, I think it's called a till, something like that. So the idea is you raise the sail, you set a course, and the wind comes along and blows you to that destination. I really like that metaphor when it comes to forgiveness, because there's this element of choice, that we have the choice to raise the sail and to set a course, but then the real power comes from God to blow us to that destination. I'm sure that metaphor breaks down maybe at some point, but I love it in terms of, God's really the one with the power working it out, but it is our choice to raise the sail. So I should tell you this morning that I think what I didn't like about that finger hitting the delete key is some of the mystery was gone. And forgiveness is a process that I have to admit I don't really understand that well. But I've seen it work out in my life. As a person chooses to forgive, I've seen in my life how God comes in and just begins to transform that situation. And so you might ask, what do you mean, Neil? What have you seen forgiveness worked out in your life? And going back to the stories that I started off with, the woman in the first story is my mom. And so in 1985, my mom was at the end of herself and struggling with bitterness and anger. My brother and I think thought that it was because we kept bringing home rattlesnake heads, or maybe it was when we tried to convince her that Van Halen was a Christian band. We kind of blew it when the tape rolled over to for teacher. That kind of gave it away. So in 1985, she was at the end of herself and realized that. And she decided basically to check herself into a hospital in the Dallas, Texas area. We lived in Albuquerque at the time. So Mom went away for 10 months. And while she was there, she received a lot of great Christian counseling, a lot of great doctors to sort of help her work through and deal with her past, and ultimately get to the point where she was willing to forgive my grandfather. And as a result of my mom's choice, I believe that radically changed my family dynamics. And, we could very well be a family that just doesn't talk to each other or doesn't have a relationship. But when I look at my grandfather, as a result of my mom's forgiveness, her choice to forgive, when I look at my grandpa, I have nothing but love for my grandpa. I see the guy who took me to Rangers games when I was a kid. I see the man who went fishing with me, that played golf with me, and the guy who tells great stories, and who I've just had a lot of laughs with over the years. And if my mom had not chosen to forgive, I think that would be totally different. I might not even know my grandpa. My grandpa is also the man who snuck me onto the flight line at Eglin Air Force Base and let me sit there when I was 16. And now you know that the person in the second story is me. And when my childhood dream was shattered as the result of a person that did wrong to me, who